Some people think that being good is the only way for them to become a winner in life. However, the protagonist of this story thinks otherwise. For him, the secret to being a winner in life is to become an absolute villain. In this life, there are 3 causes of evil. 1 is to live without compromising your beliefs. 2 is to polish your charm and not slack off. And 3rd is to not let anyone decide your future. And that is exactly the goal of our protagonist, to live according to his desires and beliefs. A path of a villain indeed. This story is simply about a reincarnated noble aiming to live as a villain, but mistaken for a saint. But before we dive right into that, let's first have a walkthrough on the type of life the protagonist had in the past. It seems like, growing up, he has been acting as a good person all his life. When he actually risked his life for the sake of saving a girl, the only thing he got was not even a single thank you. Instead, he got disrespected and left alone to die. That is why, when he wakes up in another person's body in another world, he can't seem to forget what kind of a bad life he had before. That was all the memories he had of his previous life. At that time, he died while he was protecting his girlfriend, who cheated on him and got reincarnated into a world with swords and magic. This time around, he has been reborn as Augur Verret, the eldest son of the villainous Verret Dougal family. He doesn't seem to grasp the idea that he is now technically a villain when all he did in his past life was help and sacrifice himself for other people. However, as he thinks about it more, he suddenly realizes that being a villain is far better than being a hero. After all, he has already experienced it firsthand, that being a good person is completely bad. Since he doesn't want to go through that again, he is thankful that he has now been reborn as the son of a villainous noble for whatever reason. This time around, he will make sure to live doing as he pleases. He will live according to his desires. This time around, he will make sure he will get every cute girl there is to serve him, and have his slaves work hard for him day and night. Starting this day, Augur Verret, a 15-year-old boy, is born to aim to become the absolute villain the world has ever seen. And today, he is having a lunch catch-up with his father, who is waiting for him at the dining table. As soon as he entered the room, Augur stated his apologies for being late, but his father, Gordon Verret, couldn't bother to get angry at him, considering Augur had done quite a good job training and studying, without skipping a day. Gordon seems to be really happy that the successor of one of the 4 great Dougal families is responsible and polite, and Augur is definitely that guy. Gordon, who is a feudal lord, established a bad administration on purpose, and acted like a fool to throw his political opponent off their guard, while plotting behind the scenes. Because of this, aside from being a fatherly figure to Augur, Gordon has also become Augur's inspiration, because of his excellent villainous behavior. That is why Augur will do everything to make sure he learns as much as he can from his father, for which his father has high hopes. So, in order for Augur to fulfill the conditions to become Gordon's successor, he will have to enroll in the Magic Academy, Lisburg. However, the question now is, what is Augur going to do about his magic? As it turns out, Augur possesses a one-of-a-kind technique, and since this is rare in this world, he decided to make sure not to show it to the public. Now that's already been decided, his father then asks him to choose his personal attendant who is going to serve him in the dorms. At first, Augur is quite hesitant to choose, but when his father assures him that this is all part of his training to identify good human resources, Augur can't help but contain his excitement, since this is all he has been waiting for. An opportunity to obtain a talented subordinate to support his goal of becoming a perfect villain. However, just being talented would be boring. That is why he is going to intentionally find someone with a strong sense of justice. And then he will force her to do evil deeds. Well, that's exactly how Augur envisions it. However, the question is, will that even be possible to happen? Since Augur already has someone he has been keeping his eye on, he decides to excuse himself and pick the person he chooses. His first accomplice. On the outskirts of the royal capital, Walshua City, at the underground arena, a girl talented with sword skills is killing every opponent that comes her way effortlessly. Using her sword swing madness, she easily wiped out everyone in seconds. And what's cooler is the fact that she acts all nonchalant and unfazed after almost killing half a dozen people. And it seems like she is the one that Augur is eyeing. That is why, after her bloody match, her organizer immediately calls her out, telling her that someone has come to see her. As soon as she arrives in the room, she is shocked to see that the person who is looking for her is a child. Not knowing who Augur is, Chris is left confused. Until Augur went on to state her full name and previous rank. Former commander of the Holy Knights, Chris Ragnica. Before Chris could even react harshly, she was able to notice the short sword beside Augur, with the Verret family's crest, indicating that Augur is a noble. Furthermore, Chris also starts to remember that the Verret family is in charge of diplomacy and intelligence gathering. On top of that, the ones who framed her and drove her away from the Holy Knights were nobles like Augur after all, which is why Chris couldn't help but get frustrated and irritated just looking at Augur's face. This encounter somehow reminded Chris of what happened to her before. Back then, for the sake of justice, she was tracking a major source of human trafficking, but as soon as she found out that the nobles were the ones behind it, Chris immediately tried her best to tell the king about it. However, since the nobles have the capacity and power to manipulate the king, Chris ends up getting termed as a liar and is sent away to be punished. After that, the nobles are able to cover up the evidence of human trafficking that she had collected. Furthermore, she was made out to be a criminal as well. Because of what happened, everything that Chris had worked hard building was taken away, even her position as a holy knight. That is why, seeing Augur, a noble, trying to have a chat with her, makes her angry for some reason. Because of her emotions, Chris couldn't help but grab Augur by his clothes and ask him angrily what he wanted from her anyway. Chris also poured her emotions out, stating her sentiments at the fact that because of nobles like Augur, she had to wield her sword honed for justice in an arena filled with evil. Meanwhile, Augur doesn't even bother to show any emotions. He is neither scared nor irritated. He is more likely disappointed in Chris because of her lack of pride as a holy knight. Hearing Augur say this shocked Chris. As the rush of emotion starts to fill her up, Augur assures her that even if she feels like she's no longer an honorable holy knight, he still admires her for her strength and determination. As a knight, Chris has encouraged her friends, undeterred by evil. She was filled with a stronger sense of justice than anyone else. However, it seems like it was hard for Chris to gain her confidence back then, considering she felt like she was not the same anymore. She had to earn money by using the same vile method as the people in this arena. That is why she can't go back to how things were, since the Holy Knight, Chris Ragnica, had already died. But instead of giving up, Augur encourages her that this is not the reason to give up on her purpose. Her old self may have died, but that doesn't mean she can't restart from the beginning. With such reassuring eyes, Augur offers his hand, asking Chris to join him as he will make her shine brightly again. Since this is the first time a noble has come all this way to offer her such a thing, Chris couldn't help but tear up a little. Since Augur is quite convincing, it didn't take too long before Chris ultimately gives in. Little did she know, this was all part of Augur's devilish schemes. At this point, Augur sees Chris as a loser, who he can just fool at any time. As they are heading their way back to the capital, Augur tells Chris she should change her clothes and name, since she is still regarded as a criminal in public, with Augur ultimately naming her Alice. Now that's already set, as they were about to finally leave, Chris, now Alice, asked Augur a favor if she could visit the arena for the last time, since she needs to prepare before leaving. At first, Augur thought that maybe she just planned on retrieving her weapons, but Augur was speechless when he saw that Chris ultimately wiped out everyone inside the arena, and no one was left alive. At that time, Augur certainly obtained the strongest pawn and took a step forward towards his goals. However, he was reminded that the road to becoming a villain is relentlessly steep even from the very first step, and that he should always be careful no matter what. Fast forward to that day at the Royal Magic Academy, Lichburg, known as the best magic academy in the country, that is only attended by students from the nobility. It is said to be the perfect place to create a foundation for Augur's goal. That is why, on his first day of school, he made sure he made it right on time. On top of that, the fact that he has obtained a powerful pawn called Alice, Augur is confident that he will be living his life to the fullest from today onwards. Since Alice is the one Augur chooses to become his attendant, it is only natural for her to come along with him during their first day of classes. As the other students heard her say Augur's name, the silent whispering among everyone started to get louder. However, not for a totally good reason at all. As it turns out, although the Verret family is well known throughout the kingdom, there is still that stigma that Augur is just using his family's name to get whatever he wants. Some students are even backstabbing Augur, saying that he is a complete loser, and that he probably just used his family's connections to get accepted to the academy. Hearing these almost cause Alice to get out of control. But before she can even slice everyone in half, Augur is quick to stop her and calm her down. At this point, Augur is starting to question his decision to choose Alice, considering she's a bit dangerous to be with. After all, getting harsh comments from everyone is something that Augur already expected. It is only natural, considering the Verret family is known for their villainous acts. but there is no doubt that receiving this amount of attention is quite troublesome in one way or another, considering now that he has already obtained Alice, his next goal is to create a harem. But it seems like this situation doesn't look promising at all, until a girl rushes to get Augur's attention. At first, Augur is utterly confused as to who the girl might be, but after a bit of thinking, he finally remembers who she is. This girl's name is Karen Levitsenka. She is the only daughter from the Levitsenka family, one of the 4 great Ducal families, aka Augur's ex-fiancée. It seems like the last time the two ever saw each other was when they were 5 years old, which is maybe the reason why Karen is a bit worried that Augur wouldn't remember her at all. Since this is the first time Karen and Alice have met each other, Augur went on his own way to make sure he introduced the two right there and then. After hearing everything Augur said, it seems like Alice couldn't really believe that Augur was engaged before. It seems like their engagement was called off because there was a problem on Augur's part, which Alice doesn't want to believe, as she sees her master as one perfect man. But it seems like no matter how perfect he could be, there is still something a person lacks. In this case, since magic is the most important thing in this world, it just happens that Augur doesn't have any magic aptitude. In other words, he can't technically use any magic at all. He can't use magic despite being a noble, which makes it quite a fatal flaw. That is why it couldn't be helped that even Karen's family started to hate him. However, it seems like Karen doesn't want Augur to feel that way. For her, Augur always had a special place in her heart. But since she can't say it out loud, she just decided to brush it off and excuse herself to attend the entrance ceremony. With that said, Augur and Alice also rush to the function hall to attend the ceremony. There, almost everyone inside the room is talking about Augur, to the point that Alice almost slices them off. Thankfully, Augur is able to calm her down in seconds, or else everyone else would have been wiped out. Because of these small actions, Alice starts to admire Augur more, stating that even though everyone is talking bad about him, he remains a kind and wonderful person. However, it seems like Augur just wanted to make them think that it was the case. After all, his aim all this time is to become the most villainous person in the kingdom. And for him to be able to achieve that, he would need to ensure that everyone thinks he's a nobody. Hence why he's letting them say all they want for now. However, sooner or later, Augur plans to make them all pay. To achieve that, after the entrance ceremony, Augur is now on the lookout to find his members for his harem. But just looking at how many girls there are in the academy, Augur can't help but get a bit overwhelmed. However, just like before, it seems like he has already decided his target this time as well. But it seems like it's going to be difficult to find this person in this wide place. Up until he managed to find that person, and right now she is being targeted by some bullies. To make sure he'd be able to get his hands on her, Augur didn't even hesitate to jump in and help, showing her his cool side. Luark Bombold, the second son of Count Bombold, seems to be the person who is on top of all this harassment. That is why as soon as Augur introduces himself, Luark and his friends immediately run away, while still warning Augur that this isn't the last time. Now that those boys are out of the picture, let's find out the reason why actually Augur wants this girl to be part of his harem. As it turns out, it is for one obvious reason, and that is because of her big front melons. Its destructive power sends chills to Augur's body, and that is exactly the excitement he is looking for in his group. But for now, he needs to make sure he is calmed down and acts like a gentleman, or else this girl will run away from him. To make his acting more believable, he even went on to offer the girl his handkerchief, and it seems like it worked, since the girl is now looking forward to seeing him at the new student's welcome party. Now that everything seems to work according to Augur's plan, the future villain can't wait to start his next move. Fast forward, after a bit of preparation at the Lichberg Magic Academy Hall, the new student's welcome party has finally begun. At the party, Augur immediately notices a man getting flocked by many girls, making him wonder who might this guy be. As it turns out, he is the crown prince and the next king, Arnia Ronzissim, aka Karen's new fiancé. This revelation shocked Alice, since she wasn't really expecting Karen's family would do such an awful thing, calling off the engagement of their daughter with Augur just to let her be engaged with someone else. However, it seems like Augur already accepted his fate. Considering for someone who doesn't have any magic aptitude, he couldn't really fight for what he and Karen had before. Despite Augur being really open and accepting of his fate, it seems like his attendant Alice couldn't help but get mad at her master, to the point that her killing intent caught the crown prince's attention. As they start to gather some commotion, Augur is quick to step in, telling the prince that he is with Alice. As soon as he stepped into the picture, the Crown Prince grabbed this chance to humiliate him in front of everyone, calling him the rumored unqualified student with no magic aptitude. Hearing this prince insult her master almost made Alice explode. But before she can even do anything bad to the prince, Augur quickly calms her down and steps in for himself. Although he has been humiliated and insulted in front of everyone, Augur remains calm and composed, thanking the prince for remembering his name, even though he hasn't introduced himself yet. With such a sarcastic smile, the prince went on to state that it was nothing to worry about, since Augur was quite popular among the students. As the tension between the two started to intensify, Karen tried to intervene to stop the two. However, since Prince Arnia is her current fiancé, she has no choice but to be reserved and fighting for Augur, or else it would become a big issue for everyone. Thankfully, the prince decided to stop his insulting acts towards Augur, leaving Augur teary-eyed at the fact that he can't do anything to fight for himself. However, he is indeed grateful for Karen, that despite everything, although she can't do that much, she still tries her best to help him, even in the smallest way possible. With that said, even though everyone lost their trust in him, Augur still keeps his head up high, considering there is still one person who believes he is far more capable than anyone else. However, it seems like his lack of magic powers is one of the people's biggest misunderstandings about him, since he knows, one day in the future, everyone will bow down to him and his power. But before that, it seems like Augur is far more excited to read a letter he never saw coming. A love letter from Mishiro Liche, the commoner girl with big melons that he saved a while ago. It seems like Mishiro wants to tell him something, which is why she is inviting him to see her the next day in the campus backyard, exciting Augur to the core. The next day, just like Mishiro hoped, Augur indeed showed up at their meeting place. As soon as he arrived, Mishiro immediately thanked him for saving her the other day. She also didn't wait that long to tell Augur the real reason why she called him. As they were about to get to the exciting part, Augur suddenly woke up from his sleep, indicating that everything he saw just now was just a dream. However, despite that, Augur is hopeful that dream might become a reality soon. That is why as soon as he woke up, he immediately went ahead and prepared himself for his big day. But before that, it seems like Augur didn't really expect Mishiro to give him a love letter so soon. Although he is confident that she will sooner or later, but not this early. This starts to make him wonder, is Mishiro an actual assertive girl? Or maybe she already fell in love with him on the first day of school. No matter what the reason is, Augur now sees himself as a sinful man, just like he always wanted. Meanwhile, while he's preparing, Alice, observing him on the side, almost can't help but tear up a little at how wonderful her master looks today, like a truly diehard fan. As soon as Augur finished preparing, he didn't waste a minute and immediately went to their meeting place. As soon as he arrived, he went on to apologize to Mishiro for waiting. However, Mishiro is more than glad that Augur actually came. Without wasting a second, she immediately thanked him for saving her the other day. Hearing her say the same thing as in Augur's dream made Augur quite excited. As he buckles himself up to hear his wishful thoughts come true, he is quite shocked when Mishiro asks him not to let himself get involved with her anymore. It seems like it really troubles her to be around Augur. That is why she asks Augur to see her today, just to return his handkerchief and say those words. Augur is having a hard time pondering his thoughts, since yesterday, Mishiro looked so happy, but this time around she's pushing him off. Mishiro was quick to explain that what happened yesterday was just a misunderstanding, leaving Augur in utter shock. It seems like Augur is having a hard time believing that his gentlemanly act the other day didn't work out, making him wonder just where he exactly went wrong. Then, suddenly, he managed to notice Luark and his friends lurking around their meeting place. After their slight conversation, Augur was stunned when he realized that Mishiro was actually friends with Luark. This simply means that when he drove them off yesterday, it actually had the opposite effect. As it turns out, Mishiro prefers a bad boy over a gentleman. At this point though, although Augur was quite shocked by what happened, he just laughed it out. Little did he know, Mishiro was quite disappointed in herself for saying those things to him, since deep inside, she really wanted to be with Augur. Since it was already noontime, Augur decided to pass by the cafeteria to fetch some food. While eating, he starts to think of ways he could redeem himself to Mishiro. After all, she is still one of his eyed targets. While he is sipping his coffee, Alice goes on to share her thoughts, saying that she herself was surprised at the fact that Mishiro said such a thing to Augur. Even Alice herself was expecting Mishiro would fall head over heels for her master, but it seems like she didn't. However, it seems like Alice also managed to notice something odd. The words Mishiro said are something that makes her wonder. Since Luark's group is really her friend, it would be off for her to show Augur gratitude when he leaves them off. That is why Alice speculated that there must be a reason for her to act that way. After a lot of thinking, it seems like Augur is able to get Alice's point as well. However, even if their speculations may be right, Augur still thinks that this is not the right time to act. All they need to do for now is wait and see how things will go. Alice, who thinks that Augur is just testing her powers, made it a goal to find a clue and present it to him in no time. This is why, from now on, Alice made it her mission to observe Mashiro closely. Meanwhile, at the Academy's old school building, Luark and his friends are seen talking and laughing at each other. It seems like they're talking about what happened earlier with Augur and Mashiro, thinking that Augur fell for their trick. There, just as expected, Mashiro is held captive and is forced to say those things to Augur. But since Augur is someone she admires so much, she builds all the courage to ask Luark why he's even doing this. Without any remorse, Luark went on to state that he just badly wanted to see Augur weeping no matter what. And since Mashiro has already initiated it, Luark orders her to call Augur once again, since this time around, he is planning to beat him like a toy. Even if Augur is strong in taijutsu, Luark is confident that they will be able to beat him in an instant with their magic. Worried for Augur's sake, Mashiro tried her best to stop Luark from continuing his wicked plans. It turns out, Mashiro just wanted to do what Luark and the others wanted because she doesn't want Augur to get hurt anymore, because that is what Luark promised her at first. However, it seems like they're planning to not keep their promise anymore. At this point, Mashiro starts to realize that nobles and commoners like her are people they can easily disregard. But for some reason, she finds Augur different from the others. He stands to protect everyone, noble or not noble. That is why, this time around, she opted to make sure that she would stand up for him as well. Because of this, Luark has no choice but to embarrass her in front of everyone. With much force, he went on to grab Mashiro's shirt, ripping it apart and revealing her undergarments. As he was about to get in, Augur kicked open the old building's door, shocking Luark and his friends who were already unbuckling their pants. Immediately, Luark went on to call out Augur, asking him what he was doing here, expecting Augur would be crying his eyes out from getting his heart broken by Mashiro. With a smile on his face, Augur confidently states that he wouldn't take that facade seriously at all, angering Luark. At this point, Luark starts to honestly believe that Augur has seen right through his plans, making him more irritated. But the truth is, several minutes ago, Augur was letting out a big sigh. He is deep in his thoughts, overthinking what he did wrong, until Alice informs him that Mashiro is being harassed by Luark and his friends. Through her magical camera, Augur is able to find out that what Mashiro said earlier was just a bluff, and that she was forced to say it. Her true feelings were in the words that she said yesterday, which means Augur has to save her one way or another. With that said, his broken heart is immediately stitched up by Mashiro's words. Although there is no denying that his heart was broken a while ago, but the fact that he managed to get back on his feet makes this moment much more heroic. However, it seems like Luark doesn't worry at all, with the thought that the use of their magic, Augur will get defeated in no time. That is why, with much confidence, Luark didn't even hesitate to charge in using his fire magic. However, to his surprise, Augur is able to stop him from attacking in no time. This caused a lot of questions to rush into Luark's mind. How is Augur even doing this? As it turns out, since he can't use magic, considering he doesn't have any magic aptitude, the only option he has is to erase his opponent's magic. Luark, who is constantly trying to attack Augur in different directions, fails all the time. And when he found out that Augur could do such a move, he almost fainted in worry. When he finally realizes that this would be the end of him, Luark just gives up trying, giving Augur the chance to punch him so hard. With just one hit, Luark ended up losing consciousness. Now that the losers are already taken care of, Augur immediately attends Mashiro, checking if she was just fine. While he covers her body with his jacket, Mashiro, still stunned at what happened, finally builds the courage to ask Augur what just happened. How in the world did he make that magic disappear? Augur goes on to explain that he made it possible using his delete skill. Delete is used to nullify magic with limited conditions. It is a technique he has developed over the years. Worried that Augur would hate her now and punish her for what she did, Augur is quick to assure her that there is no need to worry at all. But in regards to the punishment, it seems like Augur has something on his mind. For her punishment, all that he's asking her is to keep his technique a secret and not cry anymore. Aside from that, he also wants her to ignore those who say that they are all just dropouts or commoners who would not reach anything in life. But above all, for her ultimate punishment, Augur is asking her to come with him and stay by his side from now on. Without thinking twice, Mashiro immediately went on to accept Augur's offer. Since she couldn't stop herself from hugging Augur tightly, Mashiro just went in and showed her appreciation for him. Meanwhile, it seems like Augur himself is quite enjoying the moment, considering Mashiro's melons are now literally in his hands, which means that he has taken a step forward in completing his harem. Now that their supremacy has just begun, Augur can't help but get excited about the things that are about to come. Meanwhile, it seems like someone in the shadows is closely observing them. Seeing the three together makes this woman quite excited about the interesting things that are about to come this year. After that quite an unexpected event, Luark and the others got expelled, which was already natural. Because of the horrible things they did, they will live on while being labeled as perverts. This news is a dream for not just Mashiro, but also Augur, since this simply means that he can now focus on his routine work without worrying about taming those three. As the days pass by, Augur is so focused on training and has been working out day in and day out. Alice, who has always been by his side, has always tried her best to support Augur the best she could. As an attendant, she usually is the one who attends Augur, adding weights to his workouts, cooking for him, and even just watching over him. Seeing how fit her master is amazes Alice, since all this time she thought that nobles were all people who lack physical strength. However, her master seems to be an exception. Meanwhile, it seems like Augur is deep in his thoughts, thinking of many speculations as to why he's different. Based on his analysis, most of the nobles have a magic aptitude. However, he who got reincarnated doesn't have any. Maybe that is the reason why he gained a strong body as compensation. If that is true, then he has to polish this power further. In the midst of his training, Mashiro enters the scene, greeting him with a good morning. Seeing her immediately gave Augur an adrenaline rush. Since then, he has been dreaming of living with a childhood friend. That is why he forbade Mashiro from being formal with him to get that vibe. That is why hearing her calling him Augur-kun is just wonderful. Now that Mashiro is here, Augur asks Alice to guard her every time, since he's still worried about leaving her alone after that incident. It seems like he has been called by a certain person, which is why he's going to take a bath first and have a meeting with someone important. After prepping for a little bit, Augur immediately went his way. At the faculty building's top floor, Augur is seen inhaling and exhaling heavily before knocking on a massive door, which shows this person he's meeting must really be an important person. This person is none other than Flone Milfanti, the Academy's principal. There is nobody in this world who doesn't know about the Lightning Strike Flone. She is a hero with a long and distinguished record. Even when she's retired and assumed the position of school principal, Augur can't feel any decline from her at all. As soon as he enters the room, all that Flone emits is a good aura and welcoming energy. Despite that, Augur can't help but get nervous still. Realizing that Augur somehow feels nervous about this whole meeting thing, the principal went on to assure him that there is nothing for him to be afraid of, since she just called Augur in because she wanted to thank him for something. This made Augur wonder what this might be. As it turns out, it's about Mashiro Liche. Hearing this seems like a shock to Augur, since he never expected the principal would care that much about Mashiro. It seems surreal that the principal directly calls him to show her gratitude for saving a commoner, making him wonder just what her aim is. Then suddenly, Flone states something that would completely put Augur in extreme shock. According to Principal Flone, in this particular world, only one magic aptitude is given to each person. However, from time to time, there's an exception where a child with multiple magic aptitudes is born. And that Mashiro Liche has aptitudes for wind and ice attributes, a dual magic caster, which makes her a valuable item. That is why Augur saving her seems like a big deal to the principal. It seems like Flone has already observed how Augur paid attention to how Augur has been keeping his eyes on Mashiro. Meanwhile, it seems like Augur is pretty much still in shock at the fact that Mashiro is quite the talent. In the first place, he simply chose her because of the size of her breasts. To think that he failed to notice such an important piece of information somehow amazes him at some part. Considering Mashiro is a rare talent, her not getting ruined by the incident is such a relief. That is why the principal thanks Augur for his help. After their small talk, Augur immediately went his way since class was about to start. On his way to class, he starts to feel some sense of self-dilemma, even though his path of evil is going smoothly, with him pulling Alice as his fighter and Mashiro as his harem member. Things somehow feel odd for Augur, considering he never really expected he'll be thanked when his goal is to become the best villain there is. Little did he know the principal had something eerie in plan. As it turns out, Flone was planning to use Mashiro Liche as a subject for her experiments, and he stole Mashiro from her. What he did was uncalled for, and things are now getting a bit worse than expected. Not to mention, Alice, who serves him, is someone Flone is quite familiar with. Knowing Alice, Floan is quite aware that she is a monster who rose to the rank of commander of the Holy Knights with just her sword skill and a dual magic caster. But what concerns Floan the most is what Luark had mentioned. It seems like as soon as Luark and his friends were arrested for what they did, he immediately mentioned how his magic was erased by Augur. Hearing such a revelation seems scary for Floan, whose strength is only her magic. But since she doesn't want to believe that such magic exists, Floan starts to ponder just what Augur is actually planning on doing. Since she can't figure out his objective, she just wants to believe that Augur must have a plan to become an obstacle to the dream Floan has been chasing for so many years. However, since she is proud of her title, Lightning Strike Floan, she won't let anyone stand in the way of her dream, especially now that she's already near the finish line. That is why, as a standard precaution, she asks Reina Milfanti, one of the Academy's students, to keep her eyes on Augur and monitor him. Meanwhile, in class, it seems like Alice and Mishiro start to wonder about the fact that Augur is later than usual. As they start to worry even more, Augur suddenly enters the room, completely assuring the two that he's alright. While the two let out a big sigh of relief, Augur is still left wondering as to why the principal called him so early in the morning just to say thank you. Does that mean she values Mishiro's magic that much? Or is there another underlying reason? So, to know the truth, Augur decided to skip class with Mishiro to try something to support his theory. Although they caused a commotion in class, Augur couldn't care less considering he can't wait that long anymore to answer his question. As soon as they left the class, Augur immediately took Mishiro to the practice building, where he wanted to see Mishiro's dual magic. Immediately, without hesitation, Mishiro agreed to do what Augur asked, excited to finally show her master her cool side. As Mishiro tries to open the door forcefully, she somehow stumbles to the ground due to force. In the midst of all these, Reina enters the scene telling the first two that first-year students are forbidden to enter the practice tower. Since none of the other two were familiar with her, Reina went on to introduce herself. She introduced herself as the student council president of the Lishburg Magic Academy. Upon hearing her name, Augur immediately realizes that she is Floan's first disciple. She is known as a child who's loved by God. She is popular even outside the academy with her outstanding talent and appearance. However, what captures Augur's attention is the fact that Reina's melons are much bigger in person than the ones in the photo. He is so amazed that he doesn't even notice that he's been looking at it for a little too long. That is why Reina had no choice but to call him out in the most flirtatious way. As she starts to tease him playfully, Mishiro can't help but feel a bit off. But before she could even react, Reina immediately cornered her, asking her why they were even there in the first place. Without hesitation, Augur went on to state that it was because the class was boring, and that is why they ended up deciding to practice on their own. After hearing this, Reina immediately offered them a practical course as a courtesy of her. Knowing Reina is an expert in this field, there is no way Augur would let this opportunity slip off. After all, this is not something one can get easily, even if they paid a lot of money. This means this should prove very useful for his research into Delete. That is why, without hesitation, Augur plans to accept Reina's offer. However, before anything else, Reina makes herself clear, saying that she will just do so in exchange for Augur joining the student council. Now that Augur thinks about it, it is strange for the Lightning Strike Floan and her student, Reina, to make contact with him in quick succession, which simply means that this is definitely not a coincidence. So, in other words, this is a trap set by them. That Reina is just pretending to be kind. But in actuality, she is trying to make him her pawn. That is why, with much diction, Augur goes on to decline Reina's offer, and openly state that he doesn't intend to work under her and become anyone's subordinate, utterly amusing Reina. As the tension starts to intensify, Alice fortunately comes rushing in, lessening the tense atmosphere. Instead of checking if it's the perfect time to jump in, Alice rushes towards Augur without stopping, asking him why they left her behind. With an awkward smile, Augur goes on to point out that he just had an impulsive thought of testing something. At that point, Alice finally takes notice of Reina, who is standing on the side. But before Alice can have the chance to know her, Reina finally leaves them with a smile, stating that she finally got what Augur plans on saying. But she is still open to accepting Augur anytime, so in case he changes his mind, he can always contact her anytime, since she'll always be waiting for him. After that, as soon as Reina made it back to the restrooms, she immediately let off a deep sigh of relief. As she looks at her reflection in the mirror, Reina is quick to contemplate whether what she did was enough to manipulate a man. But as she thinks about it, of course, it wouldn't have any effect on the other women around him having something like that. Since, as it turns out, her big melons were just for stunts, and they are foams to make her melons look bigger. However, since her plan didn't work at all, Rena still doesn't want to stop working hard to make sure she'll catch him the next time for sure. Meanwhile, it seems like Augur is in deep wonder as to why Rena unexpectedly gave up rather easily. But since things seemed to work out pretty well for him, he decided to stop thinking about it for now. On the other hand, it seems like Alice is still in wonder as to why they left her alone. To avoid getting questioned a lot, he just went on to reason that the principal told him that Mishiro is a dual magic caster. That is why he wanted to see her magic, but they just happened to get interrupted by the student council president. Finally realizing what Augur and Mishiro are planning to do, Alice is quick to suggest the perfect solution. It seems like a friend of hers from when she was a holy knight has been managing an orphanage, but recently there have been scoundrels who were aiming for the land. And it just happens that she received a quest to drive them away, which Alice thinks to be the perfect opportunity to test Mishiro's magic. Since the idea of saving an orphanage is not that bad at all, Augur is open to that idea. Children are the future workforce after all, which makes them like treasures. At the back of Augur's mind, if he can make them owe him, he will be able to obtain a lifetime's worth of workforce. With that said, without thinking twice, Augur immediately agrees to go with Alice's plan, which Mishiro is quite excited to do as well. Days have passed by, and the weekend has finally arrived. On their way to the orphanage, Augur went on to ask Alice for some information about the place they were about to visit. According to Alice, it's a quiet city located outside the royal capital. Originally, it was a peaceful land without any disturbances. But what shocks Augur is the fact that the city is next to Walshua City, where the arena was. Based on what Augur knows, Walshua City is a city that has an arena because of the terrible public order, making him wonder, did it negatively impact Aniviet and lead to this incident? But the question now is why they want this land in the first place. Since as soon as Augur and the girls arrived, upon checking it seemed like there was nothing to gain here at all. Just as they were about to roam around more, they happened to come across a woman getting abused by some guys. Without hesitation, Augur immediately steps in, beating the hell out of the men. Within just seconds, he was able to wipe them out. Since it was quite easy, he now plans on asking the men what their aim is and solving this quickly. But before he can even talk, Alice interrupts him, with her loudly announcing he is Augur Verret, the one who will bring light, punish evil, and dispel all darkness. A savior who lives for justice. Although those are quite heartwarming words, it seems like Augur can't help but get so embarrassed at what Alice is doing. What's more confusing for Augur is the fact that the men seem to have an odd reaction to what he did. It's almost like he has messed up and made a bad joke. Even the client is shocked. Then, suddenly, Augur finally realizes that his client is Alice's friend, so there is no way she's normal. A former holy knight and a sister makes them too honest in choosing their occupations indeed. But it seems like this is not the right time to think about it, considering Augur still has some bad guys to take care of. As one of the men tries to hit him with their sword, Augur is quick to dodge the attack, and even shows no mercy to the men. Alice also made sure to help her master the best she could. After just a couple of minutes, they ended up beating all the men in no time. As night falls, Sister Mio finally introduces herself. As soon as they arrive at the church, Sister Mio informs Augur that she has consulted Alice about the harassment towards the orphanage and the damage received. However, she wasn't technically expecting a nobleman like Augur would actually end up visiting. With Augur here now, Sister Mio can't help but admire him for his kindness and care for the people. Little did she know that the same nobleman had some underlying intentions. Just a few seconds ago, the children finally came out. Seeing them makes Augur quite happy. At the back of his mind, these little kids will be his future workers, and since they also have been instructed to call Alice by her new name, things will definitely go smoothly from now on. Now, the only thing that Augur has to do is clearly show them the hierarchy between them from the beginning, to make sure they see him as someone superior. With an intimidating look, he went on to introduce himself to the kids as the eldest son of Duke Verret's house. He even claimed the kids to be his, and that they came here to put them all under his protection. Hoping that the kids would be terrified of him, Augur is rather excited with their reaction. Instead, the kids look at him as someone weak. They even called him a kid like them. On top of that, it seems like in this orphanage, nobles aren't well received by children at all. Since things didn't go as Augur had expected them to, with Alice realizing what was happening, she immediately asked everyone to play outside, since they still had some work to do. Meanwhile, Augur, who regards himself as an adult, tries to keep his temper in check. Besides, he still has work left to do, which is why he needs to focus. As soon as the kids leave, Alice immediately asks the captured men who were trying to target the orphanage about the reason why they're doing it. At first, they didn't want to cooperate, until Alice threatened to kill them. One of the men finally spoke up, saying that they were just ordered to do so by someone named Aliban. Upon hearing the name, Alice's expression immediately turned cold, and she then whispered, asking the man about this Aliban guy's address. As soon as she got the information, Alice immediately planned on attacking the group's headquarters by tomorrow. Meanwhile, it seems like Sister Mio is worried about the amount of reward she has prepared. As soon as Augur saw it, he immediately assured Sister Mio that he didn't need it at all. Although Sister Mio insisted on gathering more, Augur just gave her an intimidating look, emphasizing that he didn't need it. Based on what reaction Augur has shown her, Sister Mio starts to think that maybe it was because of how small the amount of money she had on hand. Considering Augur is from the Verit's house, giving him this amount of money seems like an insult. Little did she know that Augur was doing this out of courtesy. As Augur is about to leave the church, the kids start rushing in, with one of them acting on kicking Augur. But before he can even land a hit, Augur is able to scoop him up on time, flustering the kid at how strong Augur is. At that point, the kids start realizing that Augur is much cooler than they had expected. At this point, Augur then reminds Sister Mio that he doesn't need any reward at all. Besides, instead of giving him the money, Augur wants Sister Mio to use the money to buy these kids some delicious food for the rest of the week. Hearing this made Sister Mio quite emotional. Aside from the fact that he is kind-hearted and considerate, it seems like this is the first time the children had so much fun in a long time. Ever since this orphanage started being targeted, they've been frightened by the yelling every day. But before Alice went on to inform Augur about what she learned about the enemy's boss, Aliban, it seems like Aliban is a remnant from while she was Arena, which means there was someone who managed to escape from Alice that day. However, it seems like Alice is quite confident that she has undoubtedly killed everyone who was in that place. However, she had an oversight. Depending on the luck of the draw, there are cases where someone will take a day off, albeit rarely. This means that Aliban must have had a day off at that time. Based on the circumstances, his aim is most likely to build a new arena. He has lost his place, and that must be why he's targeting a neighborhood that's also out of sight of the royal capital. Since Alice hasn't been picked to fight against him, she doesn't technically know how strong he is. After hearing all of this, Augur starts to realize that this is technically all their fault. This means that Mio is suffering because of them, and yet she tries to give Augur the few silver coins that she has. It seems like the evil Augur is aiming for isn't something uncool like this. That is why, with everything he has, he will make sure to settle this matter to restore his name. But before they attack Aliban tomorrow, they first need to take a rest. After eating dinner, Augur immediately heads to his room and is now about to take a nap. As he was about to close his eyes, he suddenly felt something heavy above him. As he takes a look to see what it is, he is shocked to see that it's none other than Sister Mio, asking him to give her some of his love. He immediately asks Sister Mio just what she's actually doing. Flustered, Sister Mio went on to state that although she knows what she's doing is improper, despite her being embarrassed, Sister Mio wants Augur to teach her about love. Being raised in this type of environment and having this type of job, Mio didn't experience nor know what love is. But more likely she's worried that she wouldn't be able to teach the children what love is. As it turns out, Mio was actually abandoned by her parents at an early age, and has never received love from anyone. That is why, with tearful eyes, she expresses that she doesn't understand love. Now, if she doesn't know what love is, how will she be able to love and protect the children to her heart's extent? A superficial love would only lead to incidents like this time. That is why she's asking Augur to give her some compassion and teach her about love. However, after hearing everything she just said, Augur came to a decision to not give her what she wanted. Augur then explained that he didn't want her to wastefully throw away her purity. She simply wanted to distract herself from her insecurities. With that said, although Augur understands Mio's reasoning, he can't respond to her demand. After all, Augur only likes women with big melons, and it seems like Mio is not going to fit his type. Besides, the time hasn't come yet for the answer that she's seeking. That is why Augur assures her that she'll definitely find the answer as long as she waits for the right time to come. After that, it seems like Mio calmed down when her problem was resolved, finally giving Augur the time and space to rest for the night. The next day, Alice and Mashiro together with Augur are now finally on their way to Aliban's headquarters. But before leaving, Augur checks up on Mashiro, who has not been feeling well these past few days, asking her if she can already do it. With a big smile, Mashiro assures Augur that she's doing fine. Now that everything is already set, Augur plans on reviewing their plan first before charging in. First, they need to recall their initial goal, which is to eliminate Aliban's group and test out Mashiro's abilities. But if Augur wants to be honest with himself, for him, Mashiro is his harem member only, so he wasn't going to count her as a fighter. But if she is a dual magic caster, then it's already a different matter. So, before they enter a fight, Augur goes on to tell Mashiro what they should do. To test her magic, she's going to fight with them alone. However, Augur assures her that if things get worse, her and Alice will immediately step in. Although this is such a serious matter, it seems like Mashiro is rather calm about it. In fact, she seems quite excited about it for some reason. With that said, after traveling for a couple minutes or so, they finally arrived at Aliban's headquarters. As planned, Alice was the one who kicked open the door. Without wasting a second, he goes on to ask everyone if they are the group that has been doing bad things as an event led by Aliban. Since Aliban is known by everyone, Alice introduces herself as one of Aliban's acquaintances. However, instead of taking her seriously, everyone started laughing at her, as if she was joking or something. They even planned on playing with her until Aliban stepped in, greeting Alice using her old name, Chris. Seeing Alice seems so nostalgic for Aliban, as they were quite the enemies in the arena before. As Aliban's underlings are about to attack the three, Mashiro steps in, revealing her Frostwind magic, and with just one blow, she was able to defeat everyone that came her way. Seeing this magic in person shocked Augur the most, since he wasn't technically expecting Mashiro to perfectly control her ice magic with the wind. The way she condenses the ice magic to enhance it further is something extraordinary. Not all people are able to hold a candle to her, no matter how many of them there are. After defeating everyone, Mashiro immediately asked for Augur's approval, and when she got what she wanted, Mashiro couldn't help but fluster a bit. Augur then went on to further state that what Mashiro did was beyond his expectations. If she was this strong, wouldn't she have been able to win against Luark since the beginning? However, as naive as Mashiro could be, it seems like she didn't really think of that to be possible at first. But now that Augur has already mentioned it, it seems like she's finally aware of her true power. However, it seems like they left their guard a bit too loose, since they were almost hit by Aliban. Thankfully, Augur is able to dodge it on time. However, he couldn't deny the fact that it was indeed a close call, just showing that Aliban is actually the speed type of the enemy. Since that is his strength, Augur asks Mashiro to use her ice magic to freeze Aliban's feet. While he's stuck, Augur plans on using that as his chance to defeat the guy. Without hesitation, Augur and Mashiro work together in unison to attack Aliban in hopes that they will be able to bring him down in one blow. As much as possible, Mashiro tries her best to make sure that she catches Aliban at the perfect time. Although there is no doubt that he is certainly fast, thankfully due to the wind, Mashiro can easily locate her location. However, magic cast on reflex only lasts for a moment, but it was enough for Augur to land a hit. As Aliban falls to the ground, everyone seems to be amazed by what just happened, even Alice. Aliban himself couldn't believe that he had fallen behind these kids. He was the undisputed champion in Walshua's arena. That is why there is no way this is happening at all. That is why, no matter what it takes, he will make sure that these kids pay. Even if it means sacrificing himself by drinking a poisonous medicine that would make him grow. As he starts to transform into this hulky man, Alice, Mashiro, and even Augur couldn't believe their eyes. Now the only thing in question is, will this be enough for Aliban to defeat the kids, or will this be the end of the three? It seems like we're about to find out sooner or later. Within a split second, the girl eventually noticed a wound on Augur's face, shocking both of them. Alice immediately tried to punch Aliban for Augur. However, before she can even land a hit, Augur has already taken care of it. Now that Aliban has finally lost, he starts to reminisce about the time he never lost a fight. Even the will to lose has never come across his mind. However, for some reason, a man like Augur has defeated him. But instead of trying again, Aliban ends up surrendering himself to Augur, telling him that he is impressed with his strength, which is why he's now willing to become his subordinate. Although Augur doesn't plan on having any male subordinates, he still ends up accepting Alban as a member of his group. He even allowed him to build an arena under his watch. Hearing this shocked Alice, since she wasn't technically expecting Augur to accept such an offer, and the fact that Augur has agreed to make an arena hurt Alice a bit. So, Augur immediately went on to explain that he was doing this for a good reason. After all, having an arena where everyone is accepted will definitely generate some money. His somewhat kind words strike both Alban and Alice to the point that they are even willing to follow him for the rest of their lives. After that rather unexpected turn of events, the three immediately returned to the orphanage to inform Mio that everything was fine now, and that she didn't need to worry. The relief Mio felt made her cry so much that the kids thought Augur was treating her badly. While the kids start to insult Augur and his nobility title, Mio starts feeling ashamed for not being able to raise the kids well. She blamed it on the fact that maybe it was because she didn't know what love was. Meanwhile, the kids who think that Augur is trying to take Sister Mio's money are willing to surrender their toys just for the sake of helping Mio. Knowing that most nobles love treasures, the kids gather their own kind of treasures and hand them over to Augur. Seeing the kids act like this softens Mio's heart. As everyone starts to get emotional, Mio finally realizes that what she's feeling right now is called love. Now that their work has finally ended, Augur plans on heading back to the academy. Aside from that, it seems like he's planning on moving the kids and Mio to Verret territory. As it turns out, it seems like Augur actually has two objectives. The first one is to test Mishiro's capabilities, and the second is to secure future labor work, aka the kids. Thus, to strengthen his path of evil, he provided housing and education to Mio and the children in Verret territory. Aside from that, he also ordered Alban and the others to gather villains to serve as warriors in the arena. However, it seems like he is the only one who thinks he's one step closer to becoming an absolute villain, since everyone in the room thinks of him as a kind-hearted saint that they would be willing to serve for the rest of their lives. As the day passed by at the Royal Magic Academy corridor, Karen, the only daughter from the Levenska family, Augur's former fiancé, visited everyone. Just seeing her makes everyone squeak in excitement. As she walks across the corridors, every student tries to steal a look, mesmerized by her presence. Although she is a female, the other students, including the boys, see her as someone so cool to be with. Despite her being the Crown Prince's fiancé, everyone seems comfortable with her, as she's wonderful and kind. On top of that, unlike other nobles who were snobbish and arrogant because of their high-ranking position, this noblewoman is quite different since she's very much approachable with everyone. Since she and Augur had some sort of history, it's only natural for Karen to feel awkward every time he comes across Augur. A month has passed since the orphanage incident, and Augur and the girls have spent their days living in the academy. A lot has changed, and Michiro has become completely comfortable with the two. That same day, Augur gasps in surprise when he sees how revealing Michiro's PE uniform is. Not realizing how much attention she gives the boys, Michiro remains bubbly. It seems like she is excited to participate in her magic training, which is why she has already changed in advance. Now that Michiro had already mentioned her magic training, Augur grabbed this opportunity to remind her about something important. Augur reminds her that she shouldn't use her ice magic during magic training. On top of that, she also must remember to suppress her power. Hearing this confused Michiro since she doesn't see any reason why she should do such a thing. So, Augur went on to explain to her that her magic was too powerful. So if everyone knows about it, she will definitely be targeted. After all, she came from a poor family. That is why she somehow feels bad for her parents who pay for her tuition. That is why she needs to graduate with good grades and find a good job. Hearing this somehow made Augur sympathize with her. So, as an assurance, Augur tells her not to worry about that anymore since he promises her that he will look after her forever, flustering Michiro. Little did they know, it seemed like someone was secretly listening to their conversation. As it turns out, Karen had been eavesdropping to their conversations this whole time. At the back of her mind, she can't help but get jealous, considering Augur arrived not too long ago, yet he already has two cute girls with him. Since Karen can't help it anymore, she ends up showing herself to the group, surprising Augur and the girls. It seems like she didn't really plan on showing up, but her body ended up accidentally revealing itself. Knowing what history they have, Augur is surprised that Karen initiated the conversation. After all, it is rare for her to greet them considering she knows very well that her father will be mad if he found out about this. Immediately, Karen explains that she's simply doing a casual greeting. Despite her acting all calm and composed, as soon as Michiro touches her, Karen starts to panic a little. As much as she could, she tried to tell herself that she needed to act like a proper member of the Levitt Senka family. So, with a formal tone, she went on to introduce herself, since this was, after all, the first time she and Mishiro had officially met. Karen also grabbed this opportunity to apologize for what the Bombold family did to Mishiro the other day, as they are from her faction. Seeing how Karen interacts with Mishiro calms Augur a bit. Because of what Karen said, Augur jumped to the conclusion that maybe this was the reason why Karen greeted them, to apologize to Mishiro. But aside from that, it seems like Karen also wanted to see Augur, since President Milfanti had a message for him. It seems like Milfanti hasn't given up yet on trying to recruit Augur to join the student council. However, it seems like no matter what she says, Augur has already made up his mind. But now that Karen has mentioned it, Augur can't help but ask her if she should join the student council as well. Just as expected, it seems like Karen joined the council. She is also a person who wants to help anyone she can after all. That is why Karen really wants Augur to join the council, so she will be able to see him every day. However, since Augur doesn't plan on doing so, he immediately states that he already made up his mind and that he already told Milfanti about it. Besides, Karen is the Crown Prince's fiancé, which is why she needs to be more aware of herself. After all, seeing them together would only cause trouble. Hearing Augur say this hurt Karen, but as much as she could, she tried to hide her true feelings, and eventually said goodbye to the group. But to make her feel good a bit, Augur went on to state that he'll be glad to see her around though, causing Karen to blush in happiness. After that, the next day, and the day after that, Karen tries her best to bump across the three. Although she tries to make it look like a coincidence, Augur knows that she's doing all of this on purpose. Days have already passed, and Augur has finally noticed how Karen keeps on approaching him. Since, if he thinks about it, she never really did this before, it seems like Karen has invited them to join her for lunch. But when she realizes that it's already too much, she ends up taking back her invitation. Meanwhile, at the cafeteria, Augur happens to see the Crown Prince talking with many girls. Augur didn't really expect to see Arnia now since he expected that Arnia would eat with Karen. On top of that, it seems like Karen has been cross-dressing as Mishiro has noticed. Now that Augur has thought about it, Karen is the only child of the Levitt Senka family. The current head couple was never blessed with a child other than Karen. However, since only male children are allowed to succeed in the Levitt Senka family, they end up raising Karen as a man. However, 1 year ago, Karen was chosen by the king as Arnia's Crown Princess fiancé. The reason was because she wanted the most suitable female among the 4 great ducal families. Karen, who has been forced to behave like a man all her life, couldn't dress like a woman, which may be why most of her outfits don't look feminine at all. Since it is an engagement decided by the king, there is a big chance that the Crown Prince has no interest in Karen at all. Hence why he's still comfortable talking with many girls, even though he knows he has a fiancé and lets Karen continue cross-dressing. After realizing that the prince somewhat has his own harem, considering how many girls are flocking around him, Augur can't help but get irritated for some reason. Thankfully, Mishiro is there to calm him down, as expected of Mishiro. She is also cute on top of having massive melons, but it seems like she's also the serious type. It seems like she's not a fan of males having many females following them, as she can't completely comprehend what's so fun about it. And since Augur is a man himself, Mishiro can't help but ask him seriously whether he also dreamed about something like that. Since Mishiro's look is sharper than a blade, Augur can't help but get a bit nervous. Thankfully, Alice came on time to lessen the tension. After their mini-serious conversation, the group starts talking casually again as soon as Alice returns from doing her errand. Alice brought some food for Mishiro to try. While looking at Mishiro eating her hamburger, Augur can't help but think about what happened earlier. It seems like, at this point, he finally realizes that Mishiro looks like a scary type when she's angry. That is why, from now on, he must be careful about what to say in front of her if he doesn't want to end up getting cornered like earlier. However, it seems like he also finds Mishiro getting jealous and cute. Now that he thinks of it, Augur finally gets the reason why Karen has been approaching him. Based on his speculations, Karen must have the objective to make the Crown Prince jealous. That is why she's been trying to use him. Little did he know that Karen was doing all of this because she still had feelings for him. But since Augur is not aware of this, it seems like he's willing to play the game he made up in his mind, ready to tackle Karen and the Crown Prince. But before we dive into that, let's first take a look at what kind of life he and Karen had before. 10 years ago, Karen and Augur were quite close. During one event, Karen runs away from everyone and hides in the garden, sobbing heavily on her own. Meanwhile, Augur decided to search for her everywhere. And when he finally got the chance to talk to her, he immediately assured her that everything would be fine. On top of that, he also made sure to comfort her, considering Karen that time was scolded by her father again. Since she was young, Karen has always thought that she was a failure and a bad kid, when in fact, all she did was obey everything her parents asked her to. Knowing that it must be hard for her to endure such pain every day, that night, Augur decided to make her feel special by giving her a pretty hairpin, stating that he felt like it would look good with Karen's pretty hair. Augur used the hairpin as a symbol that no matter what challenges Karen comes across, he would always be there to accompany her, even if he's not around. Since that day, Karen has looked up to Augur, seeing him as her own hero of justice. She never really expected that a kid like Augur would save a crybaby like her. That is why when she found out that their engagement was called off because her father found out that Augur has no magic aptitude, Karen almost fainted in shock. Although, during that time, her heart is starting to get soft for Augur. Since she was a weak child, Karen couldn't do anything to defy her own father. She couldn't object when he called off the engagement, nor when he forced her to behave like a man. She is aware of the fact that she has hurt Augur, and she has always felt guilty about it. That is an irrefutable fact. Even if she wants to repair her relationship with him, she knows that Augur would never treat her the same as before. Until Augur somehow changed? After eating lunch at the cafeteria, Augur immediately looks for Karen everywhere. When he finally gets his eyes locked on her, he immediately starts to initiate a conversation, just like planned. Karen is so confused when Augur suddenly compliments her, calling her beautiful. Augur even went as far as to say that Karen is shining brightly like the sun. Since this is such a rare occurrence, Karen starts to wonder what exactly is happening. Is she dreaming, she asks herself? As Augur started to get closer and closer to her, Karen almost fainted in nervousness. As the space between them starts to get too little, Karen starts to run out of air. On the other hand, it seems like Augur keeps on complimenting her with such genuine eyes, saying that her face when spacing out is so cute. After Augur ended up getting Karen off guard, he then went on his way, smiling and telling Karen to see each other in class. Mishiro, who thinks this is rather unusual for Augur to do, asks her master what exactly he's plotting. So Augur immediately informs the two about his speculation of Karen using him to make the Crown Prince jealous. However, thinking that he is 2 steps ahead of everyone, Augur plans on not staying down and being used just like that, even if Karen isn't technically using him at all. Therefore, his countermeasure is to pursue Karen instead. After all, she'll be seriously troubled when the guy she's trying to use is falling for her. Based on what Augur thinks, once he pursues her persistently, she'll definitely get put off. That is why he badly wants to win this non-existing fight no matter what. And after that, Augur did keep up with his words. Day and night, he always compliments Karen, sending butterflies to the poor girl's stomach every day. And it didn't take too long before the other students were able to hear what was happening between Karen and Augur. While the other students are feasting on this rumor, Karen couldn't care less, since all that's inside her head right now is the fact that Augur, her ultimate crush, has been praising her passionately. As a hopeless romantic, Karen starts to believe that maybe Augur shares the same feelings as her, without her knowing that this was all just a part of Augur's schemes. Since she is so delusional, Karen starts to even imagine her wedding with Augur, how the honeymoon would go, and how many children they would raise. If it was not for her assistant, Karen would have been stuck inside her dreamland. When her butcher informs her about her scheduled dinner with Prince Arnia, it seems like Karen was dragged back to reality for some reason. After preparing for a little bit, Karen immediately headed to their meeting place. There, the Crown Prince is waiting for her, irritated. As soon as Karen says her apologies for being late, the prince's expression suddenly changed. When Karen finally takes a seat, the prince shamelessly asks her for money, 5 gold coins to be exact. This shocked Karen a bit, since she just gave the prince money not too long ago. With such an arrogant and demanding tone, the prince went on to state that she already used them all, and that is why he was here asking for more. He even went on to continue stating that his father is quite hard-headed. It seems like the king doesn't really give him any money at all. Arnia finds it inconvenient that he needs to understand the lives of commoners. That is why, since he couldn't ask anyone for money, he ended up asking Karen instead. In cases where Karen doesn't have any money, the prince orders her to ask her father instead. However, to Karen's father, she has no value other than being the crown prince's fiancé, so technically they are not on good terms. So, it would be a huge disgrace if he knew that she was being asked for money. If he comes to know about this, for sure she would get beat up like when she was still a kid. Without any remorse, the prince even warns her to have the money by next week. On top of that, before he leaves, he even goes on to insult her, saying that he never said anything because he doesn't care about Karen cross-dressing. but he has been feeling unpleasant whenever he sees her. And now he somehow knows the reason why, and it's Karen's red hair. Since she loves cross-dressing, the prince went on to suggest that she should go all the way and just cut her hair. That way she'll look like a man for real. At that moment, Karen starts to question herself as well. Why did she actually keep her hair long? Probably because she has some regrets. All this time, she wanted to remove this cramped chest wrap cloth and wear a skirt, along with a cute uniform just like a normal girl. But as she ponders about it even more, it seems like Karen already knows the answer, and that is because Augur said her hair was pretty. As she reminisces the memories, Karen can't help but sob continuously. Thankfully, she was able to remember the real reason for her strength, since if not, her hair might have been cut off by now. Meanwhile, it seems like Augur has come across Milfanti on his way home. Immediately, the first thing he noticed was the fact that her melons that day were actually fake. But since that is not the main topic of this conversation, Milfanti immediately went directly to the point. As the rumor has it, Augur has been with Karen lately, so Milfanti wonders when he saw her last. Augur is quick to answer that he hasn't seen her since they talked before lunch. Milfanti somehow finds this strange since there was a student council meeting earlier, and Karen was absent without a reason, which is something that never happened before. That is why she starts to worry that maybe something must have happened to her, and she's asking Augur to help her with the search. Immediately, they started looking for Karen all around the campus. During that time, Milfanti also informs Augur about how cruel Prince Arnia has been treating Karen. However, at this time, Augur just felt like Milfanti must have been exaggerating things. Little did he know, it was more than just the prince lacking interest in his fiancée, until Milfanti informs him that the prince has been extorting Karen a huge sum of money. By using his position to demand unreasonable things, the prince finds pleasure in making Karen suffer. And since everyone knows that Augur has changed his treatment towards Karen these past days, Milfanti speculated Augur was doing this because he wanted to protect Karen by staying by her side. Hearing all of this seems like a shock to Augur. At that point, he finally realizes that Karen wasn't using him at all, and that he was terribly mistaken. Because of this, Augur is worried that his harem plans will be disrupted if the daughter of a duke falls in love with him. That is why he plans on correcting this immediately. So, to set things straight, Augur asks Milfanti to stay in the student council office while he looks for Karen. He promises her that he will bring Karen there himself. After minutes of searching, he was finally able to find Karen crying all by herself inside a closet. Karen is a bit surprised that Augur was able to find her, but it seems like Augur is already aware of the fact that Karen has been hiding inside a closet since they were kids. Hearing this made Karen emotional, as she felt like she hasn't grown at all. As she starts to get frustrated at that fact, Augur assures her that he doesn't care. Since they are considered childhood friends, Augur assures her that she doesn't have to pretend in front of him. Thinking that this childhood friend zone thing would make Karen realize she doesn't have a chance with him made Augur confident that this will set things out straight. Little did he know, this has made things much worse, or let's just say made Karen's feelings towards him more intense. After talking for a bit, just as Augur promised, he took Karen to the student council office without anyone seeing. As soon as they got there, Karen immediately apologized to Milfanti, stating that she was willing to take her punishment. Now that they're both there, Milfanti finds this as the perfect timing to ask the two about what they should do about Prince Arnia. Personally, Augur would prefer to have the crown prince turn over a new leaf and have Karen become his fiancée again. However, he can't punish a crown prince like he did with Luark. Until Milfanti comes up with the most unexpected suggestion ever, and that is to conduct a duel through the dueling system with the prince. Now the question is Augur fine with it? Both Augur and Karen are rather surprised by this suggestion. It is quite known that when both parties claims conflict, they can duel in front of all the students, to have the winner's claim recognized. This means that Augur can fight with the crown prince in the open. At first, Karen thought that she would be the only one who would fight against the crown prince, until Augur steps in, saying he will gladly do it for Karen. As expected, Karen is a bit shocked that Augur is willing to go through all this, even though it's a bit dangerous. But before anything else, Milfanti made it clear that there is one more rule to the dueling system. For decades, it has been known that the loser will have to do one thing for the winner, no matter what it is. Now the question is Augur still willing to do it? Without even a hint of hesitation on his face, Augur went on to assure Karen that he didn't mind challenging Prince Arnia to a duel. At this point, Karen couldn't contain her emotions anymore. The fact that Augur is willing to do this for her sake makes her teary-eyed. Little did she know, in the back of Augur's mind as well, there was no way he would let Karen take away this convenient task. It seems like it is his ultimate plan to break Prince Arnia's spirits and make him turn over a new leaf. Furthermore, doing this will also give Augur the chance to beat the prince's face to a pulp, which means he's killing two birds with one stone. With Augur's agreement to do the duel, Milfanti finalizes the whole decision. All that she needs to do now is get Prince Arnia's approval. For now, Augur and Karen can head back to their rooms. Milfanti will only let them know about the date and location once everything is finalized. With this, Karen starts to feel dizzy for some reason. Maybe because of the hectic day she had. As she starts feeling unwell, she somehow falls into Augur's arms, creating a scene straight from a telenovela. Since Milfanti can't take anything all lovey-dovey with an irk smile, she went on to sway the two away from her office. As the night finally bites in, when Milfanti is finally by herself, she can't help but get excited about the coming duel. She didn't expect Augur to move as she wanted him to. With this, she can't help but get all excited, since there is a chance she can witness the magic canceller that Bombold told the principal about. She can't help but wonder how Augur will fight against Prince Arnia, who possesses strong magic power. But above all, what was most interesting for Milfanti was the fact that Augur's clear eyes when he decided to take on the duel. She doesn't know why, but when he showed such straightforward eyes filled with justice, Milfanti can't help but get all turned on. A personality quite different from what she shows everyone. The next day, when the final announcement of Augur and Prince Arnia's duel was posted, everyone couldn't help but get shocked and excited at the same time, as they weren't really expecting Augur would actually go against the prince. Even Augur himself was quite surprised that Milfanti is able to get the prince's approval that fast. Because of this news, Mashiro, who everyone knows to be quite close to Augur, didn't escape the school paparazzi. It seems like they wanted to know more about what happened, and also take a picture of her as well, considering her voluptuous figure. As she starts to feel uncomfortable with this amount of attention, Alice immediately comes in to help, and tells everyone to move away from Mashiro whilst they're still alive. Thankfully, it worked out pretty well. As soon as the students left, Augur then went on to thank the two. Mashiro is still in shock because of the news she heard. She never expected Augur would be caught up in such a grave situation. Before she gets all worried, Augur assures her and Alice that everything will be alright, and there's nothing to be worried about at all. While she wraps herself around Augur, Augur starts to have some thoughts. Although he didn't really expect it that much, it looks like his favorability, which had decreased at one point, has increased even more, which is good. Considering he looks rather calm about all of this, Alice and Mashiro finally calmed down. In fact, they even promised to cheer him on at the duel and give all of their support. With that being said, Augur finally takes this chance to have a talk with the two regarding his plans for the duel. When they finally made it to the less populated area on campus, Augur poured out his game plan. It seems like he intends to beat the prince, make him turn over a new leaf, and have him treat Karen better. And Augur calls this operation the birth of a new prince. So proud of his plan, Augur is quite excited for his duel. But to his surprise, it seems like the prince has paid them a visit to the old building. As soon as Prince Arnia steps in, Augur thanks him for agreeing to his duel proposal. Although Augur states this with such respect and formality, Prince Arnia's ego can't take in the fact that a dropout like Augur actually dares to challenge him. However, since they've already come this far, Prince Arnia doesn't want to make it look like he's the loser in this game. So, to still ensure things are in his favor, he decided to change the headlines and make it seem like they are fighting for Karen's love. Augur can't help but get all shocked and dumbfounded by what he just read. Before leaving, the prince went on to say that he wouldn't just accept a challenge from a dropout like that. That is why he used Karen to make things interesting. Now he looks like a hero of justice who is sacrificing himself for the sake of his fiancée, which means there is a chance that he'll get more popular with women. The match is the day after tomorrow, so the prince hurriedly made the arrangement. This move really pissed Augur off so much. In the back of his mind, this guy seriously has a bad personality. He is not sure he would turn over a new leaf, even when he lost the actual duel. On top of that, it seems like the prince is actually having his eyes on taking Alice and Mashiro from Augur. However, Augur is quick to shut him down, telling him that he won't just give the two away that easily. Since Augur really cherishes them quite a lot, as someone who loves stealing women belonging to others, Prince Arnia plans on taking them forcefully. Little did he know, he was literally asking for a life sentence with his plan on approaching Alice. Before Prince Arnia can even land a hand on Alice, Augur immediately snaps it away. With such a serious, deathly look, he warns Arnia not to mess with Alice and Mashiro at all, or else he will be the one he's up against. Because of how serious Augur looks, Arnia immediately calms him down, seemingly make it all seem like a harmless joke, and that Augur is just being too protective. Despite him not pushing through with his plan, he promises Augur that one way or another, after the duel, those girls will be his. After that quite tense scene, Prince Arnia eventually leaves, while stating that he's looking forward to the duel. As soon as Prince Arnia left, the deadly aura Alice emits is still prominent. In the back of Augur's mind, although he was trying to settle this peacefully, that arrogant prince still tried to throw himself into a nuke. Thankfully, he's still able to jump in, or else that prince would already be dead meat. Considering this is such nerve-wracking for Mashiro, she can't help but glide her body onto Augur due to relief, which Augur really likes. Meanwhile, Alice can't help but worry that that kind of prince would become the next king. She can't ponder properly what has the king been teaching his son. Based on the information she has gathered, Prince Arnia has always skipped classes, and no one knows about his abilities or his magic attributes. But even though he's rotten, he is still royalty, which means he has inherited powerful magic. Considering the prince is no easy opponent, Alice wonders what Augur actually plans on doing. Well, despite Augur looking like he doesn't have a plan, it turns out he actually has one. To explain it better to Alice, Augur decided to just take her to the practice tower. However, first-year students are not allowed to enter this building at all. But it seems like Augur already thinks ahead, and has the key in his hand. It turns out that Milfanti lent it to him last night. Before he and Karen left her office, Milfanti went on to give him the key to the practice tower. Milfanti permitted him to use the place to train until the duel in 2 days. Also, he and Lishay are allowed to be absent from class if they want to train. At first, Augur is a bit hesitant as it seems like it feels illegal for him to enter that tower. On top of that, he's not quite sure if it's right for him to enter the tower without permission from the heads. Milfanti is quick to assure him that there is no need to worry at all since she is the student council president of Lishburg Magic Academy, which means she is the highest authority of the academy Augur will ever meet. Because of this, Augur ended up accepting Milfanti's offer. Hence why he and the 2 girls are here today. As soon as they got inside the tower, they were shocked by how amazing it looked inside. But the question now is, what are they going to do here anyway? Well, it seems like Augur wants to think of a way to defeat a magician without using delete. Since all the students will watch the duel, he can't possibly use delete, which is something Milfanti is actually hoping to see. But it seems like Augur has already thought ahead of everyone. For him to be able to do just that, he needs Mashiro's help. First, he would like her to create snow with her ice magic, which Mashiro immediately did. Seeing Mashiro go always looks amazing for Augur. At this point, he somehow feels a bit saddened and frustrated that he ended up making Alice and Mashiro the stakes for the duel. But he assures them that he will win, and protect the 2 in the long run. Hearing Augur state these words while also showing off his body, the 2 can't help but get all flustered. At this point, Augur plans on meditating, a kind of technique he has been eyeing to try for a long time now. It seems like he has been conducting research based solely on the assumption that the enemy's magic can be erased. Therefore, he has extremely little experience with magic compared to normal magicians. All because he'll erase them before he can experience it. However, if he can't use delete, he needs to fight while sensing magic with his body. This means that for the next 2 days, he's going to expose himself under this snow magic and have his body get used to magic. Mashiro immediately got worried since there was a tendency that he might catch a cold because of this. Alice immediately assures Mashiro that there's no need to worry at all since she knows Augur will be fine. After all, training using his body is so like Augur. Now that Augur has mentioned it, Mashiro starts to reminisce about her memories back when she was a kid. Compared to others, she grew up experiencing magic, and she knows that not having that experience will be a major handicap for a magician. But she still can't help but worry for Augur, since this training is too reckless for her liking. At this point, she just starts to wonder if Augur will actually endure this. Although she is definitely worried for him, she knows for a fact that Augur is no ordinary man. With that said, since she promised to cheer him on after all, she's going to make it snow for 2 days without any break. In this world, there are spirits that can't be seen by normal eyes. Those spirits have attributes. What commonly represent them are the following: water, wind, fire, earth, thunder, and light. When they are infused with magic power that matches them, they convert it into energy and create a phenomenon. That is called magic. And in this world, there are no spirits that match Augur's magic power. In other words, he doesn't have magic aptitude. When he says that, people would misunderstand and think that he doesn't have magic powers. But little did they know he actually had one. He inherited the Verret family's massive magic power, which everyone is not aware of. It seems that, to the spirits, his magic power is like poison. If he infuses his magic power into his opponent's spirit, he'll be able to cancel their magic activation. But he can't possibly use this skill in the duel. That is why, no matter how hard it may be, day and night for 2 days, he tries his best to endure all the pain. Fast forward to a day before the duel. It seems like Augur has already grasped what he's looking for. At this point, he can finally sense when magic will disappear and appear accurately. With this, he knows very well that he won't lose against any magicians, even if it's the kingdom's prince. The day of the duel finally arrived. Everyone is excited to watch this anticipated fight. As expected, everyone starts to put their bets on who will win and lose. And of course, everyone believes Augur stands no chance with the crown prince at all. But is that really the case? Among the audience, Gordon Verret, Augur's father, is also seen. He is together with Principal Floan. Seeing Gordon here today amazes Floan so much that he is still as much of a doting parent as ever. But Floan can't deny the fact that Gordon has the right to do so, considering his son has certainly achieved great things shortly after enrolling in the academy. On top of that, depending on the winner's request, Floan might need Gordon's permission, which is why she called him here. However, he seems more like a parent attending a class observation than just an observant. While everyone is excited to see the two, they seem to be in the contestants' room still waiting. There, it seems like Karen is really anxious about what's going to happen. After all, it is a duel against the Crown Prince. If Augur loses, he'll definitely demand something outrageous. Although she believes in Augur's strength, she can't help but get all anxious about it. Meanwhile, Augur himself is surprisingly composed. Karen then starts to wonder, how is he actually planning on going to fight that guy, considering he can't use magic? Instead of telling everything to Karen, Augur just assures her that there is nothing to worry about, since he has prepared a countermeasure. Hearing this somehow loosens up the tension Karen feels, but now that Augur has mentioned it, she goes on to ask him what he will demand from the prince in case he wins. As Augur starts to think about it, he realizes that he hasn't really decided yet. After all, his goal is to have the Crown Prince start over from scratch with Karen, but it'll be weird if he tells him to start over from scratch with Karen. With that, he decided to just let Karen decide what she wanted to do with Prince Arnia. Now that she's settled into being Augur's childhood friend, she must be hoping that the Crown Prince truly engages with her. With that said, for the first time in a while, he asks her what she actually wishes for deep in her heart. Since this is the first time someone has asked for her personal thoughts about this, it somehow feels illegal for her to say it. But her wish has been set for a long time, and she just couldn't say it out loud. With a teary eye, she went on to state that she wanted to be together with Augur forever. However, since she couldn't say it out loud, Augur thought that she meant the prince. With this in his mind, Augur promises Karen that after the duel is over, her wish will still come true. Now that everything is already set, the two eventually enter the arena. As soon as they entered, the loud cheers of everyone were heard all over the place. As usual, almost all of the girls on campus are in favor of Prince Arnia, while the boys who were furious at him side with Augur, hoping that he'll be the one who will avenge them for what the prince has done to them and their relationships. Prince Arnia is quite surprised that Augur is quite popular among men. Augur is quick to tell him that it is because Arnia has earned too many grudges from them, but Augur still finds their cheers are seriously unnecessary. Before the duel starts, the referee asks them to wear their battle coats and gloves. But it seems like Prince Arnia doesn't want his coat and would rather have Augur's, which is in the color white. The referee is quick to tell them that it is not possible, since the coats are equipped with magic tools that will determine the winner. It is fixed by magic, so it can't be removed anymore. With that being said, as soon as the two finally settled, the duel finally began. To start off the battle, Prince Arnia went on to initiate the first attack using his Earth Spirit. Everyone is kind of surprised by Arnia's power, even Augur, who didn't expect Arnia's magic to be an Earth attribute. However, it seems like the prince is not showing off his real potential yet. Augur knows that he has been hiding his abilities. However, Augur has come up with a countermeasure that can handle this kind of magic. But it seems like he wasn't expecting the prince to actually incant a large-scale spell. The prince has a carefree stance with his full concentration on his incantation, ignoring Augur completely. Since this is something Augur is not expecting at all, he can't seem to move an inch from all the tension he's feeling. In the midst of his battle, he starts to reminisce about some of his memories. Throughout his life, he has faithfully followed the path of evil. To become the absolute villain, he has thoroughly researched magic, polished his combat techniques, and never slacked off in his efforts. That is why, no matter what happens, he will never yield against any opponent. Even right now, in this duel with the Crown Prince, he has that resolve in mind, and yet he feels like he can kill the prince with one punch. Well, it seems like Augur is not actually tense. He is more like disappointed. Aside from the fact that Prince Arnia left him a lot of wide open space to attack, he was actually expecting a formidable opponent, but all he gets is this man. With that said, it seems like Augur will be able to finish this fight off in one go. Since all that the prince does is talk, he finally tells him that he can kill him in one go if he wants to. Feeling a bit insulted at what Augur just stated, Arnia tries to irritate him by stating that he's quite the boring one for being the childhood friend of a loser crossdresser like Karen. In fact, he even openly stated in front of everyone that Karen is just a wallet to him, which is why he keeps her around. Because Karen is someone that Augur really values, he can't help but get irritated at what Arnia stated. As soon as Arnia finished gathering his power, he ended up sending them off all at once towards Augur. But to his surprise, it seems like Augur has managed to dodge them all off, even if his eyes are closed. Because of how shocked Arnia is, Augur is able to send him off with one blow. Augur is so angered by Arnia's statement a while ago that he keeps on punching him until he's already knocked down. Because of Arnia's unexpected loss, his fans started to give up on him. In the end, Augur ended up becoming the winner of the duel. 23 minutes after it began, the duel between the Crown Prince and Augur was concluded. Augur was let down because the Crown Prince was too weak. Nevertheless, he has certainly accomplished his objective. His goal is to make the Crown Prince turn over a new leaf and reconcile with Karen, thereby cutting off her roots and establishing the harem he envisioned. However, now the request will be made by Karen. At first, Augur thought that she would ask the prince to start it over with her, but to everyone's surprise, she ended up asking the prince to cancel their engagement. Instead, she wants to be engaged with Augur this time around. Since this is all settled in a duel, everything is made official right then and there, by the principal and Augur's father himself. While everyone congratulates them and is happy with the news, Augur is rather shocked and worried now that his harem plan will be impossible to achieve anymore. This is such grave news for him that he ended up passing out. After 3 hours of staying in the infirmary, he is greeted by Karen as soon as he wakes up. And to his surprise, Karen looks somewhat more appealing today than usual.